Okay, so this was my general idea. I needed to make a shoe rack. Some would hold, 5, 6 pairs of shoes and coats, and the requirements were that it needed to be as slim as possible. So, what I did is I got a piece of oak for the side rails, another piece for the shoe rack section, and a piece of birch plywood to do a pattern plywood design for where the coat racks will be hung. Okay, to start with, you're going to want to square up your board. Use a speed square, set my line, and then I measured off of that. The bottom section I measured up 3 inches, and then I measured up another 24 inches from there. That will get us to the upper portion of the shoe rack. Next we'll need something to draw the curves. Now I'm thinking instead of doing the straight front edge, I'm going to just round it out. It'll just look more consistent. But for drawing our curves, we'll just use some cans. Grab 2 from the pantry here. One's going to be 4 inches and one's 2 inches. I'm going to use the 4-inch on the shoe rack section, and I'll use the smaller 2-inch one on the top and bottom of the side rails. So I highly recommend one of these digital angle finders or little level box. 20 bucks off of Amazon, or I probably can get it cheaper off of AliExpress or something, but you can just get all your angles cut exactly 90 degrees without any hustle and bustle. Okay, so now we're going to rip the boards down to the shoe rack section essentially. So we're going to stop about 30 inches from the bottom of the board, and we're going to flip it and do the same thing the other way. And we'll do our final cutouts with the jigsaw. So here you can see what I'm talking about. I stopped about, I think it was 3 inches shy of my mark, so I could do the rest with the jigsaw and not worry about cutting through too far on the other side. Alright, so we've gotten our piece roughly cut out where we want it, each side there. My plan's going to be is I'll hit this with the sander until I get it down to a shape I'm happy with, and then we can just use this as a template to clean up the second one without having to do all the sanding and hard work. We'll just get a flush cut bit on the router table. It'll make life a lot easier than doing things twice. Now my flush cut, my trim bit wasn't deep enough to do it in one pass, so I had to set it high and then just lower it down, make two passes. Okay, so I wanted a bit of a profile on the front edge of the board, so I took a 1/4 inch roundover bit and I put an undersized bearing in it, and it left a nice little raised little bar across the entire front surface. It turned out pretty well, I think. I like it. So my idea for doing the mortison tenon, I guess would be the mortison half, was to use the router with a board, or any straight surface. I just stopped short of my 2 points. I did drill a slightly larger size hole to start the router in, just so it wouldn't put so much stress on it. Nothing a little extra glue won't fix. As for the pieces for the shoe shelf section and the supports in the back, I took my smaller piece of oak and I ripped a small 1.5 inch strip off of it. That will be used for the supports on the back, and then the rest will be for the 2 shoe rack sections. I'll take these and I'll cut them in half. The router table to cut all the tenons. Seemed to work pretty well. I'm happy with the results. Now after you've gotten off the router table, you're going to need to cut the corners, round off your tenon so it'll fit into the mortison. I just took a chisel, cut the edges, then laid it flat, popped them off. So at this point I began cutting all the strips for the plywood pattern inlay for the coat rack section. There's tons of videos on how to do this, people that explain it much better than me, but I'll just give you a little shortcut of all that work that goes into it. Okay, so as you can see, when I was cutting, some of the pieces came apart. Probably didn't put enough glue on it, doesn't really matter, but easiest way to fix it, just so I can keep going and not have to wait for the glue to dry like I did last night. I'm going to use a little of this quick bond adhesive, instant bond. Just going to take a couple drops of super glue. Spray on a little of this activator. And I got a straight edge here just to make everything stay uniform and not have any more problems, not create any more problems. Oops, pushing a little too hard. Super good, it's not a miracle. Hold that out for a couple of seconds and we're done. Just let us keep progressing through. They need to have one row, it didn't stick very well. Just keep carrying on. So, after watching a lot of plywood pattern videos, I mean a lot, it's become apparent that it's very important to keep the pieces in the right order. If you mix them up or put them in the wrong direction, apparently it'll mess up the pattern and you won't be able to see it by the end. So I took the time to number all my boards just in case. Once again, we're going to cut 2-inch strips. So once we flip them, everything's uniform. It's like deja vu. It's like I've done this before several times. But this is our final glue up. One thing that I did almost every time was I glued the first board, which you don't need to do because everything's going to get pushed into it. So try to keep that in mind if you're doing this. So at this point it became apparent I had two issues. First one was that it was too thin, I thought, to hang all this weight off of, and all just held by my poor glue up the first time. So I decided to laminate onto a piece of 1/4-inch ply, brought it up to about 3/4, just under. My other problem is that it's not big enough. So I started with a piece that was 24 inches by 30 inches. I thought it would be big enough, but it's about half an inch too small. So I have to figure out a solution to that, which was I made a border of oak and I I broke the edge at the top and the bottom. I think it turned out pretty well. Now to attach the coat rack section, my pattern plywood, I decided to use dowels just because Well, to be honest, I'm trying out different techniques to learn as much as I can from building this one project. But this Miles craft jig worked pretty well. No complaints. Everything lined up. Wasn't hard to put together. Now we have all our pieces finished, ready for assembly. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of clamps, so I decided to do this in 2 steps. I did the shoe rack section first, clamped that all up, let it dry for a day. Then I used my same clamps at the top and attached the coat rack section. So here you go. That's how it turned out in the end. Not too bad. Threw some boots in there so you can see how it will hold them. At an angle, you see the diamonds. And if we come around to this side, I decided to throw some magnets inside a little slot I cut so you can hang your keys off it. First time building something like this, so be kind. Tell me what you think.